This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about a group that you really need to be careful of. These are the Bitcoin Cash liars. For those of you who are blissfully unaware of Bcash, it's often called Bitcoin Cash or Bcash or BCH. Bcash is a failed fork of Bitcoin. The real Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin, is BTC. A lot of Bcash or BSV promoters will tell you that their Bitcoin is the real Bitcoin, but I hope that after watching this video, you'll understand the issues behind it and why someone can assert that BTC is the actual Bitcoin. Bcash is just a hard fork of the original Bitcoin, of BTC. A hard fork is where you just copy the code. Because Bitcoin's code is completely open source, anyone can inspect it or copy it and make their own changes. And if you make those changes in such a way that they're no longer backwards compatible with what came before, you end up with what's called a hard fork. And this is what Bitcoin Cash did back in late 2017. And the way it works is you have a common history up until a point, and then you have, it almost looks like a map of the schisms within Christianity. Here you have BTC continuing to the present. Back in 2017, you had the hard fork, the fork wars, what we might call, and this is when BCH split off from BTC, and then BSV, Bitcoin Satoshis vision, which is run by another, shall we say, questionable human being, also split off of BCH. And so that's the basic history. If you want to delve a little bit deeper into the actual history, I cover it in this video, which I'll link to before. But for the purposes of this video, what I want to do is bring you up to speed so we can discuss a video that's been circulating that has a lot of people concerned. Before we do that, we've got to do a little bit more introduction. Is BCH really a failed hard fork, or is that just me asserting it as a Bitcoin maximalist? Well, there are various metrics we can look at. The Bitcoin's market cap, BTC's market cap, is 790 billion as I'm recording this. BCH's market cap is 6 billion. At one point in time, they had equal market caps, but the past, call it 5 years since BCH split off, has been very brutal to BCH. People have dumped their BCH and exchanged it either for fiat or BTC. And we can see this if we look at a price chart of BCH versus BTC since the schism, since the hard fork. If Bitcoin Cash is strengthening, the chart will go up. If Bitcoin Cash is weakening versus BTC, the chart will go down. And we can see it's been a one-way, excuse me, for the most part, a one-way street downwards, where BCH has lost market share, has lost liquidity, versus BTC has lost market cap, etc. If we take a look at the number of transactions and the usage of the blockchain, Bitcoin Cash, BCH is on the left, BTC is on the right. And you can see that the real demand, the real activity, and the really large mempool is with Bitcoin. This is where all the activity is. Bitcoin Cash is basically, it's like a graveyard. It's so quiet. There's so little going on because it's a failed hard fork. And I cover this as well in this video, which I'll link to below. If you're finding this video helpful so far, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Maybe share this video with a few Bcash people that you know. So I think that's enough background. I wanted to play for you this video that's been circulating. A bunch of you have asked about it. And this is a video that is very critical of the Lightning Network and BTC. It's put out by BCH people. So let's take a brief listen and then we'll talk about it.
So we'll have Lightning Network basically, where you and I can transact on this second layer infinitely, instantaneously, cheaply, and when we're ready, that transaction, the net result of all the transactions are going to get settled, and then they get sent to layer one on the blockchain, and that's when we resolve the transactions. Does that make sense?
I've heard that was going to happen for years.
That's gonna, yeah,
Right?
it's been in the works for a long time because it's a very complicated system to build, but that's one of the solutions.
Who's building it?
It's the core team from Bitcoin Core. Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of sounds like Robinhood trading Bitcoin in a
It's
sense.
exactly what it is, yeah. It's derivatives, that's right, which is one of the criticisms that the Bitcoin Cash team had. Their criticism was, you're literally recreating the current financial system.
You're literally recreating the current financial system.
Because who's to say that we can't just print infinite amount of currency on the Lightning Network?
Right.
You have literally
That's true.
Are we the baddies?
gotten rid of all the fundamentals of Bitcoin because you're no longer using that tech. You are using another layer that is not even connected to Bitcoin. Just like we did with cash, because we got rid of base.
So I think we can leave it there. One of the really strange things about this video, of course, is you've got Mr. Doge in the background looking askance at the speaker. And you know you're in trouble if Dogecoin and Mr. Doge, the dog, are looking at you with a questionable look on their face. So this video is a very desperate video. We can see it's put out here by B. Cashy, and it's basically a propaganda video that gets a lot of stuff very wrong. The Lightning Network, for those of you who haven't been following my channel, you have basically different layers in Bitcoin, and this is the best engineering solution. This is how the internet scales, and it's also how BTC scales. You have the blockchain itself, also known as layer 1 or the base layer. And then, so this is where you have very strong final settlement guarantees. This is where everything settles. And then you have a layer 2 built on top of that. You have different layer 2s. One of them is called the Lightning Network. And the way this works basically is you lock up some Bitcoin on the base layer, and then you can use it to transact on the Lightning Network. And then when you're done transacting and you decide to close the channel, and there's no reason to really close channels, they can be left open for a long time. But when you close them, then everything settles back on the base layer. So they talked a little bit about that in that video, and they got that partially correct. The way they talk about the Lightning Network, though, they talk about it as if it's some beta project that has never really been released. And this is extremely misleading, especially because it's already being used all around the world. It's what's being used in El Salvador for their move to Bitcoin as legal tender. Lightning Network, as we've said in previous videos, it's extremely fast, extremely low fees. You pay just a fraction of a penny to move stuff around. And it's especially good for small payments like buying coffee or a burger. This was the promise of Bcash, that it would be the money you could use to buy coffee. And so Bcash promoters are very, very desperate and despondent because they see that BTC is being used for micropayments as well as for billion-dollar payments. Here's a picture of how you can use the Lightning Network and BTC in El Salvador to buy a Big Mac. You can also use it at Starbucks there as well. I'll link to an article about how the Lightning Network is being used in El Salvador. That's its own rabbit hole. But suffice it to say here, the Lightning Network's capacity tripled in 2021. Here we can see the Lightning capacity. The capacity of that network is up to about 3,400 Bitcoin. That's what's locked up on the base layer and being used to transact on the Lightning Network. And so this has been experiencing exponential growth. And for people who are Bcash promoters, it's quite a sad sight for them. Here's a map of all the nodes. There are about 18,000 Lightning Network nodes that are visible on the Lightning Network, and 82,000 channels. It's a little bit hard to see in dark mode here, but these span every continent. And this is a way to instantly move money in a permissionless manner, instantly move Bitcoin anywhere in the world. So you can send remittances to El Salvador or any country like this. Lightning Network, completely permissionless, open to anyone to use. Anyone can plug in. You don't need to register. You don't need a special license to use the Lightning Network. And as a result, there are individuals using it, there are corporations using it, there are different groups building it and building on it. We have Lightning Labs, we have Strike, which we talked about, Jack Mallers' company, Sphinx Chat, which is a layer 3 built on Lightning Network, LN Pay, Breeze, Moon, which are different Lightning Network, Lightning wallets. And so really anyone can plug into the Lightning Network. It's not controlled by Blockstream. It's not controlled by Lightning Labs. These are lies that are put out by people like the Bcash promoters. Now, in order to use Bitcoin, in order to get Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, you or someone else needs to lock up some BTC on the base layer, on layer 1, like we talked about, the blockchain itself. This is done using 2 of 2 multisig, where you have both sides of the channel. Each one holds a key, and the Bitcoin is locked up on the base layer. In order to get 1 Bitcoin, 1 BTC on the Lightning Network, you need to lock up or freeze in a multisig lockup. You need to freeze 1 Bitcoin on the base layer. Because of this, there's zero risk that the Lightning Network surreptitiously or secretly increases the total supply of 21 million Bitcoin. This cannot happen simply because the accounting that's done cryptographically, you need to lock up 1 Bitcoin on the base layer in order to use 1 Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. So this is just a complete lie that the Lightning Network prints more Bitcoin, as that video suggested. One of the early questions in Bitcoin's early history was, is Bitcoin just a better PayPal, a better peer-to-peer as a form of cash, or is it something even more special? Is it a bearer asset like gold that doesn't have counterparty risk, where if you hold it and control the keys, it is yours and can be used as a fundamental building block of a new, more fair global financial system? The Bcash people, the P2P cash people, had a much smaller vision for Bitcoin than has evolved. Now, Bcash people will often cite the Satoshis white paper talking about a peer-to-peer electronic cash system that would allow online payments in a decentralized, permissionless manner. And this is what's in the white paper, but it's important to realize that we're not white paper fundamentalists here. And it's also important to realize that the initial point of Bitcoin's history does not necessarily determine the subsequent history. So the inventor of the wheel may have had something in mind, and the wheel's being used in different ways, etc. The other thing important to realize is that Satoshi does talk about, in his other writings, he talks about Bitcoin as a way of not having to trust banks, not having to trust central banks to not print more money. So he has a very good understanding of gold, and there's a lot of evidence that he thought of Bitcoin not just as P2P cash, but also as a bearer asset like gold that allowed people to bypass central banks. That being said, Satoshi left the project many, many years ago, and Bitcoin has evolved in the way it has, and it's evolved to become much more than a P2P version of PayPal, like a decentralized PayPal. It can do that, but it can do much more than that. And the Bcash people tend to be more fundamentalist about it, and they'll just cite the abstract and the white paper and think that this is somehow how things should be. So they have a much more narrow vision, and it's quite arrogant to call something BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision, and whether it's Bcash or BSV, and limit his vision in such a way, because Satoshi had a much greater vision than just creating another version of PayPal. And this is one of the very special things about Bitcoin, about BTC. It basically, because it pursued this greater good, it got to eat its cake and have it too. So for the early years in Bitcoin's history, really up to 2017, was really focused on making the base layer as secure and compact as possible so that anyone could run a node, so we could stay completely decentralized, and so that the size of the blockchain wouldn't get too large and then prevent everyone from being able to run a node. Increasing the block size, as Bcash and BSV people wanted to do, would have made the blockchain, and has made the blockchain for them, very unwieldy, and as such has hurt decentralization. So Bitcoin was focused initially on just that base layer, making it secure, as small as possible, the blockchain as small as possible, in this way, treating Bitcoin as digital gold. But then once you have the base layer being as secure as it is, then you can also focus on it as a peer-to-peer payment network. So Bitcoin basically got to eat its cake and have it too. It ended up being a bearer asset, digital gold, and also a payment network that can be used anywhere in the world. Ironically, Bcash, by focusing on the lesser good, ended up with neither. So it's very important. Don't go to bitcoin.com. This is owned by Roger Ver, the scammer who helped to create Bcash. You can see for a Bitcoin site, it's unbelievable. He obviously has the original Bitcoin here. He's got Bcash, and he has the nerve to put Ethereum on here as well. And so this misleads a lot of people, and this is the real problem with the Bcash people. They're very, very misleading the way they do things, as we saw in the lies in that video. So again, bitcoin.com, owned by Roger Ver. Best to avoid this website. You're not going to find trustworthy information on it, as we've seen in that video that we just watched. Other points to address from that video: the Lightning Network is not a project solely of Bitcoin Core developers. There may be some overlap, not a whole lot as far as I can tell. There seem to be different groups working on it. There may be some overlap, but that is a lie, saying that the Lightning Network is just completely developed by the Bitcoin Core devs, which are very decentralized groups spread around the world. The Lightning Network is not a derivative. It's not like derivatives at all. It's nothing like Robinhood, as they compare it to in the video, where you need to trust a central corporation to make good on your BTC, your paper BTC or your BTC IOUs. It's nothing like that. It's cryptographically assured that there's Bitcoin locked up on the base layer in order to make it available on layer 2. So in this way, it's not at all derivative. It's actually the same thing that is being cryptographically secured on the base layer. Also, the Lightning Network is not recreating the fiat financial system. When you have one guy in charge like Roger Ver, that's how you recreate the fiat financial system, or one guy in charge like Vitalik Buterin, who has a bully pulpit and can determine monetary policy. So that would be especially alts like Ethereum moving to proof of stake. That's how you recreate the fiat financial system, not the Lightning Network, which is permissionless. It's anyone can log into it and use it. So Bcash promoters, they really are in a world of hurt. They've had a very bad bull market. They've continued to underperform Bitcoin since their fork in 2017. And it must really gall them as well that El Salvador is using BTC and not BCH. So they're holding on. They have this tiny market cap. There's not a lot of activity on their network compared to BTC. And then finally, I would say that what a lot of people don't realize is that there's this asymmetric situation where if the Bitcoin miners, if BTC miners chose to, they could launch a 51% attack on BCH or BSV, on Bcash or Bitcoin Satoshis Vision. Just 5% of Bitcoin miners chose to do that. They could cause a lot of problems for these networks. But the converse is not true. The groups that are solely mining BCH or BSV, they're just tiny. They have a much smaller hash rate compared to BTC. And as such, they couldn't flip it around and use it to attack BTC. So even if BCH or BSV had some value, which they don't, it'd be very easy to disrupt the networks and make them unworkable by launching a 51% attack by their big brother, BTC. So this is another thing that they'll never tell you. And if the more BCH videos you watch, the more you realize how they're just completely full of lies. That, for example, the Lightning Network somehow prints more BTC. These are just bald-faced lies, and as such, these are really people you want to avoid. BTC is digital gold. It's gold 2.0. It's also this global monetary network that's slowly taking over the world. For a while there in 2017, it was unclear whether you'd have these multiple versions of Bitcoin. But history has shown that there's only one form that has won, that has all the liquidity. So if, for example, you're a large institution, you're not going to buy BCH or BSV when they have a market cap of just $3 billion or $6 billion. If you want to buy $6 billion worth, you'd move the market too much. You'd have to basically take over the whole market. BTC has liquidity. This is where the large players are playing. This is where El Salvador is buying Bitcoin for their balance sheet, where MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor are buying Bitcoin for their balance sheet. This is where the central banks will be buying. This is the new global reserve asset. Bcash is a huge distraction, and what they've done is they're sort of the demonic copy of BTC, where they borrow the logo and they turn it green, and they borrow the name and they add cash to it. It's a huge distraction. And it's especially dangerous for newcomers to the space. And I remember when I was a newcomer to the space, I was looking at Bcash and BSV and Bitcoin. I thought, well, maybe I should buy a little bit of each of them just to make sure I have the right, I'm betting on the correct horse in the race. At this point, it's very, very clear which coin has won the fork wars, and that's BTC. So I would ignore these people. Be very careful where you get your news from. A website like Cointelegraph, for example, I believe is a big promoter of BSV, etc. And so you got to be very careful where you get your news from. And I would avoid Bcash people for the most part because they're intellectually dishonest and they don't even have their facts right. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. Let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. It's going to be especially interesting to see how the Bcash people respond in the comments below. You'll probably see a lot of citations of Satoshi's paper and that abstract and trying to extrapolate everything from that single sentence to show that BTC is not the right Bitcoin. But let's see how they react. Hopefully they'll be a slightly higher intellectual level than XRP, but probably not by much. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.